Ligature Audits and the audit trail. So we covered this on your training, but I want to emphasise some of the issues around the audit trails and things that have come out of some of the cases that I've been working with as well, that are glaringly bad practice that some places have done. So when you get your team together to do a ligature audit of an establishment, first thing is never do it as a solo person. At the very least you want two of you to be involved in that audit. Even better if there's 3 or 4, but definitely not one person, minimum of 2, and make sure that all of the people involved in the audit have sufficient competency to partake in it. It's also good if you're looking at additional people, you might then want someone from the estates and facilities team as additional, but don't count them in the core team. So you want to be able to say, well, we had 2 or 3 people who are competently trained to do the audits, plus we had someone there from the estates and facilities. Yeah. Or get some of your estates and facilities managers on the course as well, so that they can then say, yes, I've got the knowledge of all the estates and facilities stuff, so when I'm doing the tendering I know better what I'm asking for and what we're looking for. And as I mentioned on the training as well, photograph it. So I'll give you an example. We've got several different people from the one organisation have gone to different parts of the organisation sites and conducted an assessment. Now they've come back with their assessments, and the written quality of the work is quite poor as well. There's gaps that have been missed, or there's just like high, low, medium, and no real explanation. But neither is there any guide that the organisation has signed off to say this is the core guide that we're assessing it against. So an example is a door fitted in a frame, so the ensuite bathroom to this particular room. Now everyone who's gone off to the different places have at least identified there is some risk with the cubicle doors, but nobody actually writes on the form what that risk is. Now some have assessed it as low, some have said medium, some have said high, but they're all installed allegedly to the exact same specification, so what is it? And because nobody has taken any photographs, we can't then look at it and say, well, this is a different gap size to that door up there. But the estates people are assuring us that every door is actually to the same spec, but we won't know that now because we've got no photographs. So the emphasis is get your photographs when you're doing the assessments, especially if you're saying there's something wrong with the area, take the photographs. Now one of the examples I gave you was a venue that I did, and I took the photographs anyway, even if it wasn't anything at fault, because then I wanted to show on the day that I assessed it, it was fine. It was less than the 2mm gap, so if weeks or months later it's showing that it's now gone to 5 or 6 mils, something's happened in between my assessment of saying it wasn't an issue to it then actually being the issue. Also, what was recorded on some of the sheets was adaptations that had been done by the service user. So this particular room had an anti-ligature coat hook, but the service user then had bound it with strong tape to stop it collapsing because they were putting extra weight onto the hook. Now that was commented on in the risk assessment paperwork, but then nothing had happened about it. So although it had been adapted, the person who then did the assessment didn't know what should be done about it, who to report it to, and so it remained. Now thankfully nobody then ligatured on that item, but they've recorded in the documentation that this had happened, but nothing's happened about it. So you've got to make sure when you or your colleagues are going out and doing the audits that you then as a company can say, right, this is the core audit assessments. So you might want to go out and take some pictures of the doors and whatever, and say, these are the areas of tolerance, you know, this size, that size. But if it's outside of that, then it's got to be flagged up, and then you can have, for example, your categories of what you think are high, medium and low. But it's about you as an organisation trying to then show this is the core template, and all the staff were trained and they were complying with that, so we don't then end up having this situation where the exact same standard fit item has been assessed by the different assessors over various, you know, low, medium and high. So hopefully that makes some sense in relation to your risk assessments. And have you started them? How often are you doing them? And again, there's no mandate as to how often you do a full audit. Now, what I would say is never let it go beyond a year. Throughout the UK, the accepted standard is no longer than a year, but then you've got areas, and particularly in some of the NHS in Scotland, they'll do the audit every 3 months or 4 months. So there's other places that'll say every 6 months. So you as an organisation need to put it in your policy how often you're going to do these assessments. And you might say to start with you're going to do it annually, but then some of your venues, if you decide they're higher risk, then you might say, well, for those ones we'll do them every 6 months, or, you know, and then see how it goes, because you're at the starting point now, so you can learn from everyone else in the UK and what they're doing and how it's going wrong. But, you know, it's always got to be flexible in line with whatever's happening out there in the courts, and how, such as the coroner courts, fatal accident courts, the criminal courts are looking at this. So it's about safeguarding yourself as a business and as an individual, and to make sure that any staff going out and doing those audits fully understand the importance of what they're doing, and that there's no rush. You know, there's nothing worse than if a person's under pressure to rush, because then they'll stand up in court and say, well, you know, I missed it because I was rushing. And as you know from the training, when you start looking at a wall in the room and you start going, you know, left to right or right to left and working your way around, it's labour intensive. And then if you're taking pictures, and then you need to make some decent records as well. But if you do the records detailed the first time, then hopefully then thereafter it's going to be quicker, because you've got detail written and you've got the photographs as well. Alright, I'll see